Hello, everyone. My name is Steven, and this is my wife, Lee, and we are here at the Unlocking Love Summit. We have with us today Lisa Alexander. Lisa Alexander, PhD, is a quantum metaphysician, creator, teacher, and practitioner of the Alexander method of vibrational sound and energy therapy. Her unique advanced program bridges the gap between science and spirituality to offer healing services through each layer of our existence. An advocate for improved healing or improved living, Alexander calls on a diverse personal and professional history to serve individual clients and students and provide transformational speaking, coaching, and advisory services. Lisa's journey is a testament to her determination and passion for wellness and healing. Starting her career as a successful model, actress, and spokesperson, Lisa shifted gears in response to the detrimental health effects she witnessed around her. Being a lifelong learner, teacher, and researcher, a series of traumatic experiences led Lisa down a new path, exploring and researching the science behind metaphysics to better understand the nature of the otherworldly events that were transpiring in her life. Through this research and its outcomes, she carefully crafted and pioneered her unique modality to help others understand, heal, and transform various aspects of their life to live a better, healthier, and fully realized existence. Miss Alexander is also a certified theta healer, meditation trainer, heart math practitioner, spiritual counselor, Reiki healer, and ordained minister. And you can learn much more about Lisa Alexander at lisaalexander.com. And we are so excited to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Wonderful. So, Lisa, I would like to jump right in. I would love to hear more about this Alexander method that you have created and how this scientific yet spiritual approach works and helps people heal.
Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of came about during that shift year, 2011 to into 2012, where a lot of people thought the world was going to come to an end based on the Mayan calendar. And of course, those of us who researched that realized that's not what the Mayans were quite talking about, but it was a shift and change, which literally actually takes about 30 years. So the 2012 is in the middle. So we're coming out of the end of that change. We'll probably see more of that shifting by 2030. Again, I understand I'm also a psychic, so and a remote viewer, so I kind of see these things. But I was just going through. I'm going to keep it brief because I did write a book during COVID called "Get Forked: How to Heal and Transform with Tuning Forks," and so my whole stories are in there. And I encourage people to read the book. It's an easy read, but it does bridge the science to the spirituality because I'm a Libra and I'm a researcher and I need to be balanced in both. But it talks about you mentioned the otherworldly experiences when I was having these traumatic events going on in my life with betrayals of my husband, and we lost our farm. He spent all my money I made as a model in New York, and when I found out about his secret life and went to go to divorce him, I realized I had no money to even pay the attorneys, so he got another shot at it. Um, but the craziest things were happening. So the angels were literally coming to me, and I don't mean my third eye. I mean they physically manifested in my bedroom. I had spirit guides coming out of the walls. I was traveling to other realms. It was, and I've never done psychedelic drugs ever or plant medicine, and I know people who have. And when I tell them about my experiences, they're like, "Oh, I'd rather have that." That is because it's so real. And they led me to this modality that I do, and it works with very specific frequencies that the Vatican kind of hid for a long time, and were found again in the 40s, and it's pretty much the frequencies of the Gregorian chants. And when they found when people were chanting to that, they could connect directly to God or source, creator, whatever you want to call it. And of course, then you don't need the priests and the bishops and everything else. So they kind of buried these frequencies. So it's the solfeggio frequencies, but I took it beyond that. I worked the math and calculations and then brought those up to higher frequencies as well. And in a nutshell, what we do is we clear the chakras, the nadis, the meridians, and we physically raise your vibration. I mean, we energetically raise your vibration and physically. So people, myself included, I was in a near-death experience car accident in college and suffered from debilitating back and neck pain. I mean, if you looked at my MRIs, you'd still see it there. I'm kind of bone on bone, but they took away the pain and it was just amazing. So it's just this really great modality that I teach now. But when I started, it was helping me dealing with the forgiveness aspect for my husband, right? He begged me to take him back, and I did. And then I got into a lot of the law of attraction, which I really now am not a big fan of because it leaves one hanging. So it's all about the spiritual think positive, and I'm sending you love and light. Well, what does that really mean? Are you really sending me love and light? That is, so and really it's stolen from the Bible, actually. Asking you shall receive, that's right out of the Bible, and all the concepts are literally taken from the Bible and some other ancient texts as well. And but yet no one cites it. So the people who talk about law of attraction don't cite it. As a writer, my publisher, my editor, like in my book, everything, there's citations for everything. So you know where everything comes from. And so, so I was trying though, that's where I was at. So I bought Louise Hay, and Desmond Tutu's daughter wrote a book about forgiveness at that time. So I was reading all these books about forgiveness. I got into A Course in Miracles, and I was like, forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. Great, I forgave. Well, and I was doing this modality. I had foundational skills and then advanced skills, and I was working on master skills at the time. And then eventually, things were okay in my marriage. Things were seemed to be better. But then my husband's 10 years younger, and his father died, and he's an only child, and his parents were stockbrokers in the city. So he found out he was going to inherit a lot of money. And that's when he started all his stuff again, the lying, the hiding, the cheat. I mean, it was just unreal. And in when I found out, when it all came to light, because it always does, right? It rocked my world because here I was basing myself a lot of my thought patterns on just think positive and all the spiritual stuff. And I'm like, well, spiritualities betray me. We are still physical beings, right? And so at the time, I was working on my master skills program because my students are like, we want to get to master skills. And in master skills, we work with specific frequencies that scientists use to affect DNA and RNA. So we work on those. But in that, we discover, we know now that we can carry forward the belief system of our ancestors and our parents and on and on. So that came up. And then I learned about my own mother and my father's relationship, which wasn't dissimilar by no means. And of course, they're from a different time, Depression era, World War II parents. And but those women were taught to take it. You didn't leave a marriage because a lot of young women don't know, but until 1974, women couldn't have a checking account, hold a credit card, get a mortgage. I mean, ERA still hasn't been passed. So they were bound to their husbands unless they happened to luck out and have a really good job, or they were just very, very brave women because the divorce laws were not in favor of women. We were still very archaic, almost that kind of biblical thing where a husband owns his wife. So my mother just took it. And I had two older brothers, much older brothers, who were very narcissistic and treated me just like a stupid little woman. Yet I was this classic overachiever. And that actually pissed them off because then they were jealous of me. So I was abused by men like that. And obviously that's why I ended up in these relationships. So learning that, now is that time of letting go of that. But in the process of it, because the first go around, I pushed all that down inside me. And then the second go around, it surfaced in health issues, very serious life-threatening health issues. I was in the hospital this year for a heart attack and AFib, and I eat plant-based and exercise, and I'm still my model weight. And, the doctors were baffled. 3 cardiologists said, this is just stress. Well, what is stress? Stress is it's an electrical system, right? Our nervous system's electrical system. So it's in our body. So we might experience all this stuff and all the positive love and light and all that stuff is not going to release that from your physical body. That's where you need somatic practices such as breath work or, physical stuff. So in my master skills, I started incorporating more of that, and we actually do trauma work in it. So we'll really take, because we do past lives, and past life skills are very similar to trauma skills, especially if you're dealing with childhood trauma. So we go through that, and we work with not only the sounds of the tuning forks in a very specific mathematical order and work with the chakras and the energy systems, but we also have forks that have a weight on the end. And when you strike the weight, the vibration comes down the times into the stem, and you put it on your body. and you literally feel the vibration. So we used it for meridians because rather than needles, this was softer and gentler, and it actually spanned out better. But we also found somatically bringing that physical vibration into the nervous system, into the areas where it was trapped, started to break up that stagnant energy, and so it was really kind of maybe divine timing to let's bring the spiritual, the energetic, and the physical together because we are both of those. And you can't ignore one or the other. You need to tap into the spiritual side and the energetic side, but you also need to understand we are a body and our body needs to be taken care of, right? So I just took my car to the shop the other day. It's having an electrical problem. Gee, nerves, our nervous system's an electrical problem. That vagus nerve runs to almost every major organ in our body. I think the only thing in our torso that it misses is a spleen. And it's so important to understand how our nervous system works and how emotions will get trapped. And, meditation just isn't enough. Honestly, to release that, we need some sort of somatic healing, whether it's yoga, whether it's breath, whatever resonates for you. There are a lot of great programs out there now. I certainly haven't tried them all. I'm experimenting with more and more for my own healing journey. And certainly we do that in the Alexander method. And it's been really successful, helping a lot of people. And, I'm that classic healer where I don't work on myself. I'm so worried about my clients and my students and helping them. I forget to work on myself. And so this latest slap in the face was like, hey, Lisa, my students even said, Lisa, you've got the tools. They work for all of us. Why won't you let us work on you or work on yourself? But we tend to put ourselves last. And I was raised that way. So I'm the tail end of the baby boom. I was born in 63. So, but my mother put everybody's needs first. And it manifested in ovarian and uterine cancer, which happened to me as well. It manifested in heart disease, which happened to me as well. So, if we ignore the body, that's not good. But we shouldn't be obsessed. So you got the people go to the gym and they're just nuts. That you should never do anything to an extreme. You have to find that balance, that yin and yang balance. And so, understanding the energy, but understanding how things manifest in the body and learning new ways to release it and deal with it and accept that that is going on. And, I always wonder with some of these people I read, oh, love and light and law of attraction. And I'm like, yeah, you just wait, sweetheart. One of these days, something big is going to hit you and you're going to see how much that works.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have so many different ways that I want to go with that, but I just want to touch on, I love how you are bringing up all these teachers, right? In your experience, whether it is that intense, being hit by a truck kind of trauma, or the teacher within your body, or even your students, right? How they become your teachers. And I just think it's so beautiful and it's so humble how you describe your process, because everything you're talking about is this is big, very impressive stuff. And yet you're bringing in just kind of the ways that you discover this, the ways that you were taught, the ways that you were open to learning. And I want to just highlight that because I think it's such a beautiful way to tell your story. And it kind of also highlights on that idea that you are still in the process, right? You're still growing, you're still learning, and you're still open to more teachers. You talked about your spirit guide teachers, spiritual, but also the physical right here. We've got our teacher in this vehicle, if we're willing to pay attention. I was wondering what was the first time that you really, the aha moment of like, oh, my body is trying to teach me something.
Yeah, I think that was when I ended up in the hospital this past summer with this heart issue. Because everyone looks at me, I'm 61 and I have no problem saying that, and I've never done anything. I don't believe in Botox or fillers and all that, just injecting yourself with chemicals. Why would you want to do that? I do believe in aging gracefully. I was very blessed. I had beautiful parents, but I I was really busy because we're going through the divorce and my brain was focused on all this stuff, and he's still sneaky liar, so we had to spend extra money and trying to figure everything out. And the attorneys just every time you turn around they want more money, and I was really busy in a lot of that, and I was busy physically, so I was doing a lot of physical work that he just he just kind of stopped doing, and I needed to do for the house and things. And, I used to have no problems. I taught him how to split wood. I was a country girl. I lived in New York City, obviously, for years as a model, but I was a country girl. I taught a lot of guys how to split wood and start fires and, enjoy the outdoors and kayak and all that. And, but he wasn't doing any of that. He's a tech guy. He's a video game player. He's a gamer. He'll game day and night nonstop. So I was just doing all this physical work, and I'm walking up and down these hills to move wood, and I couldn't get any breath. I'm like, this is not like me. I have dogs. I walk. I hike. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I felt for days like I had an elephant on my chest, but I was still learning. We never should stop learning. I was in had to go to South Jersey after the weekend of logging wood, right? Chop wood, carry water, right? That was me. Chop wood, carry water. Enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The classic Buddhist tenet. And I had to go to this really intense conference in South Jersey, put on by two big leaders in speaking. And so I wanted to, obviously consume some of their knowledge. So I pushed through it. I was just like, I'm in pain, but I'm going to go. And because I just thought it was stress and anxiety, because I was under a lot of stress and anxiety. And that's how I wrote it off. I wasn't the cheeseburger, sitting on the sofa type of guy. So I'm like, this is just stress. This is just stress. Nothing. Classical woman, right? Stress. And at the end, but normally I get up on stage and participate in these programs because I want to learn. I couldn't for 2 days. I just sat quiet in my seat and watched everybody else around me do that. At the end of the second day, I'm trying to drive home, and I talked to a friend who lived in South Jersey and wanted to get together for dinner, but turned out he had COVID and we couldn't meet. So he said, sounds like you're having a heart attack. So I Googled it. I'm like, I have all the signs of a heart attack. That's impossible. So I was gonna come home to get to a hospital. I was about an hour and a half away from home. But that night, these tornadoes touched down in South Jersey. So my hour and a half ride took almost 3 hours because literally I was in it. Trees were crashing in front of me. I'm like, if this isn't a sign from the universe, I don't know what is. And they just kept closing off all these roads, and we were all getting detoured around without cops. We just had to find our own way because it was all happening in real time. By the time I got home, I was exhausted from the drive. I'm like, oh, it's just stress. Let it go. And then, now my husband never calls me, but that morning he called me. Apparently, some offer went out to my attorney from his attorney, and I didn't respond right away. And I didn't because my attorney said we don't need to. And he called me screaming about it. And then I started feeling these palpitations. I'm still stressed, still anxiety. Finally, at the end of the night, I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like my heart was in my throat. And I have a smartwatch now, and I really never wear it much because of technology. I wear it when I walk my dogs. So if God forbid something happens, I can call out because I don't take my phone with me when I walk my dogs. And I said, "You're an AFib." I'm like, "I'm an AFib? What? What does that even mean?" And it's like, "Get to the hospital." So I went to the hospital, and they said I had a heart attack and didn't even know it, and that I had been in AFib probably for about 7 days. And then I was in the hospital. I was in ICU. I was in there for 3 days because they couldn't bring it back down to normal until they shocked my heart. And unfortunately, it did permanent damage to my heart. And so I'm like, it's a heart. And that was my wake up call. I was just like, something is just not right. And so I think that was really it, to have something like that happen. And then other health issues as well. And I know it's a lot of it's just that I forgave, but it hurt. And I didn't find the right healers to help me get that out. And that's why I have so many certifications, because I was trying to get all these certifications to figure out how to heal this in me so I can help my clients. And and now I realize it is a little, everyone has to find whatever their own healing modality is. But what I try to do is take the best of a lot of the things I've learned, take out the right nuggets that I found work for me and my clients. My clients are the best guinea pigs in the world. They're always willing to come, like, try it out on me. So we did. And so I kind of got this just I was just blessed with running into great teachers and studying under them, and taking what worked and what didn't work put aside, taking what worked and incorporating it into that space of vibrational energy, because we are frequency, as Einstein and Tesla talked about. We are vibration. It's just finding the right vibration and the right path to that to help you release or heal from whatever circumstances you're going through. So.
I know I jumped on you last question. You go ahead.
No, no. I mean, I love that we're talking about this, you know. And that is a crazy story, you know. And I'm so glad that you're okay. I don't know if I've ever met anyone who was having a heart attack for 7 days.
Well, the heart attack happened, but then I was in AFib for 7 days.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah, because what AFib does is it's again, it's a nervous system, it's an electrical thing.
Right.
So the upper chambers of the heart go they flutter. And but the lower chambers still just go flum plum, flum plum, flum plum.
Mm,
So this is going really fast and going up and down. So like my heart rate was like this,
yeah.
right? And then so what happens is blood pools on the top, and that creates blood clots, which
Yeah.
can put you into stroke.
Mm,
So,
okay.
and you can stay in that. Some people are in it chronic, so they have to be on meds, but they're in a low version. But I was in acute, so it was really intense because it was acute, and then eventually it did subside. So, and now I kind of know what to do to when I feel that coming on, where I'll go to my breath work or I'll grab a particular tuning fork that calms down my nervous system. So,
Yeah.
I'll just sound and listen. And I always incorporate sound with breath work because that's how the ancients did it. They
Mm.
really did chanting or the Tibetan bells or the Tibetan bowls. So tuning forks, I can throw in my purse. I can take them anywhere, and they're cheaper than at least my singing bowls anyway, and my huge gong. All that. So those are but yeah, these work really well just to kind of center everything and bring me back down into that, and trying to realize this too shall pass.
Yeah. And and we've actually done quite a bit of the Hertz work, for through different things, whether it's tuning forks or sound baths. And I know that for me, I was not a believer.
Mm.
You know, for me, it was like I wanted it. I wanted, and I love that you are introducing the science to this because, like, that's what I wanted. Like, show me how this works. Tell me why this works. I don't want to go do this frou-frou, e stuff, So, like, I love that that's not going to work. We need to go see a therapist and we need to like talk about this. And, that's what people do, you know, and I'm very, very, so I love that you're introducing the science to this because it does make sense. And I love that, uh, you know, can you talk a little bit more about the different frequencies and
Mhm.
that there are
Yeah.
different frequencies that do different things? And,
Yes. Yes.
um, and then I have one other question that kind of goes with that. I know that our bodies are usually constantly telling us something. We don't necessarily have to be an AFib or be having a heart attack to be aware that our body is trying to tell us something. And I was hoping that you could speak a little bit more on that as well. So I know those are two completely separate questions, but I know Lee's going to jump in after this, so I'm getting them in now.
Okay. So let me just start with that last question first. And I had telltale signs,
Right.
but I was ignoring them. Because that's what we do, especially when you're busy, you want to push through. And the way I was raised as a woman, my mom worked in a factory. She always worked and cooked different meals every day because we all had different schedules. But I just pushed through it, and it just the universe had to really slap me, and that's how it always works with me. So you'll hear about that in my book about the first time round and other situations in my life. I tend to just ignore it and it's going to be fine, because I was taught to suck it up, and then until it really pulls the rug out from under you. So some people they take the first little sign, and that's great. They're following their instincts or their intuition right away. And sometimes you have to be careful too, because where are your hits coming from? Because I do teach an angel intuitive course. That's where all my gongs and singing bowls are. They're up in a center up here in town. And I teach people how to connect to their angels and how to connect to spirit guides and things like that. And a lot of young people are getting into plant medicine. I don't have anything wrong with plant medicine, but they want to learn how to channel because I channel. And I'm telling them you can't do drugs and alcohol when you're doing that. Even in theta healing, we learn that spirits, right? So wine, alcohol, it's called spirits for a reason.
Right.
So you don't know what kind of spirits are going to be coming through to you, and so my kids, I call them my kids, but they're in their like 20s, but the ones who listen to me talk, they're doing a lot of plant medicine, but they hear about my experiences and they want to learn how to do that without plant medicine. And that's the pure way to do that, because plants are wonderful, but in the spirit world, we have our angels who have never been human. We have our spirit guides who have been human and walked the path before us, so they can help us because they might have been there. And then we have the nature spirits or the elementals. Well, they're your fairies, your devas, your leprechauns. Well, they're mischievous spirits. I mean, in Scotland and Ireland, they're kind of feared even. And so they're tricksters. So the plants bring in those types of spirits, and you could get good ones, you can get bad, but you don't know what you're going to get. So you have to be really careful. And it's kind of why the whole spiritual movement of the 60s and early 70s, the kind of first hippie era, failed because they got too much into the psychedelics. And particularly, they were doing the LSD, which was synthetic and even worse. They went overboard, and it literally killed a lot of them. And then they got scared and they sold up to the riches of the 80s, quite honestly. So whenever I run into a former hippie and they start talking about the good old days, I'm like, yeah, why didn't you finish? It was the Aquarian age coming and you stopped. So that's your signs can come in different ways, and you just need to learn, and you have to learn. I mean, this is Earth School 101. I mean, my age, I am still taking classes and I'm still constantly learning, and that's really what you want to do. And when I mean learning, I mean really take a class, whether it's online or with someone. There's too many influencers out there who are just trying to get attention and likes. And and I know this because I have a lot of young people in my group. They just regurgitate. Like, I will tell them something and then I see it on their Instagram feed and it's taken out of context, right? And so there's a great Geico commercial where the guy finds this beautiful, overlooking a lake, mountain all by himself with his camper, and then flows there. And he's like, I got to enjoy this before the world discovers it. And he turns around, there's a line of people, and there's this girl with her camera, and she's move out of my way, move out of my way. And she's like, oh, I'm just here on the mountaintop, manifesting abundance, and and it's kind of true. So back in the ancient times, women of my age were revered, right? It wasn't until you hit a certain age that people would take advice from you, because we're no longer ruled by our hormones, which also play tricks on us. I mean, to be a curandera in Mexican society, you have to be 52 or older to even be that. And in a lot of the ancient civilizations, they don't even have a word for menopause because they didn't have any symptoms of it and they just went into it. Luckily, I didn't either. I was great. So, but that's when the wisdom comes, and then people would sit around and talk to them. And in my little neighborhood here, I'm actually living in the house I grew up in. There's a whole new generation, and they're all having babies, and it's so cute. Like, because I'm a big gardener, and so the kids will come gather around me in the summer, and I just love it. The young generation, they get it. They'll sit and just listen to me, and they want to hang out with me, and it's so wonderful. So that's the signs. Now, as far as frequencies, I found the solfeggio frequencies are great. I pair each one with a different chakra. So they're really good with opening and clearing the blocks in the chakra and raising the vibrational frequency rate, because they go up in scale. And then when it comes to body, I don't have them all here because they're at the studio, but we have different length forks. They're set by doctors who just measure the frequencies. There's a frequency for nerves. So we have a nerve fork, and that's great. I use it on people with diabetic neuropathy and things like that, help stimulate the nerves. There's some for bone, right? So, there's certain, if people have osteoporosis and we want to strengthen bone. There's some for muscle. The 128 hertz is the go-to for muscle work, right? It releases nitric oxide, which Dr. John Bulio back in the 70s figured out. It releases nitric oxide in the body, which is a vasodilator. So it brings blood flow to the injured area. And that's a really important fork. They're all on my website. They're all in my book. And the free book you're getting with this summit is is a beginner's guide for tuning forks. So each one of these forks are in there, and they explain what they do, so that I'll get in how to use them. And then there's one called the Ohm, which is about this size. It's 136 hertz, and when you listen to it, it literally sounds like Om. It's a great meditation fork. I love it. And whenever you do, you sound them. You want to listen in one ear and take a breath and cross over to the other ear, or better still, have two and you do surround sound. The particular fork I had here is one of my new favorite forks. It's the 110 hertz. And in summer, probably my last big out there job was in May because I had my heart issue in July. In May, I took a group of my people to Malta. It was called Meditate in Malta in May. And because I'm an international sound therapist, they opened up the ancient hypergeum to my group, and they're very restrictive. They only allow a few people in because it's underground and they want to preserve it. So we all got to go in. I got to go in twice because we had to split my group up into two. And it's older than the pyramids or Stonehenge or any of that. And when scientists went in, they Peter Cook and I forget the other scientist's name, Ingram, but they're on my. If you go to my website in the shop under the 110 hertz, I put the science in there with it. And again, it's also in both the free book and my regular book. But they put skull caps to test brain samples on people, and they found like why did the oracle room? It's the oracle room, which is their sound chamber, and the sound just bounced off so beautifully. So they're like, why was it at 110 hertz frequencies? Well, they found when they had people listen to 110 hertz, their left and right hemispheres of their brain kind of melded together into one. So it was that oneness. And they just said they never felt so much peace and comfort. So, the ancients knew best, right? And it's just, and you're absolutely right. There is a specific frequency for just about everything, really. So it's finding that right frequency. And then it's also finding what resonates with you, because if you're not vibrating high yet and you're just starting out, you want to start out at a lower frequency and you need to work up to those higher frequencies. Otherwise, it'll be too much for your nervous system to handle. So, and that's what I teach in my course is when a client comes in, well, what level are you going to put them at, foundational, advanced, or master's? If there's someone who's been doing energy healing work for a long time, you could probably go right into a master's level healing on them. But if they're brand new, you're going to start at foundational level and slowly work with them to raise those vibrations. So it is being properly trained, because there's science and math. And I'm always afraid to tell people that some people get scared when there's science and math. I'm like, it's simple math, simple math. It's easy, and I make it easy for you. So, but it's good to know that, and it's also good to understand that. For me, I was not going to write my book until I had it took me years. I got all my science down, and then I got the thumbs up from some big people in the industry, and I mentioned them all in the book. And I just needed that, because there's just too many people like just doing this and doing that to make money, and that's not how it works. It's really, yes, we need to support ourselves, but and you do want an investment so people honor it, right? If it's free, they don't usually honor things either. So, but you train, we have an online, because of COVID, we did an online portion, which is all the science and all that stuff they can do online. And then I meet with them online. But when it comes down to learning the hands-on modality, then we have to get together in person because they need to train. And I can't reach my hand through a Zoom and move their hands the way they need to go. So they need to get together with me and train. And now I have some other students who are actually at the level of being able to teach as well. So we're on a really slow scale. We kind of, what we were on a bigger scale, and because I was speaking up and down the East Coast, and then COVID hit. And we learned that that's really the best way, because when I speak, I have students in the crowd, and we go around and let everyone experience it. And that's the best way to really learn. So yeah, so it's all good. And I obviously, this is what the universe sent me here to do, which just took me several decades to get here, but I had a lot of great life experiences along the way. And without those life experiences, both good and bad, because believe me, the best time of my life was when I was that model actress. I got to fly around the world and do great things. And I'll never say anything unkind about that. It was an amazing experience. And honestly, there are days I wish I never quit, but I quit because 9/11 happened and my dad died suddenly and my mother really needed me. So we didn't have, cell phones were not prevalent then. If I was in Europe for 3 months, my parents didn't hear from me. And she was the one who was always sick. So when my dad died, she's like, well, if something happens to you, who's going to take care of me? So that was when I said, okay, I guess it's time for me to kind of settle down and come back to Pennsylvania to be here. She's long gone now, but you got to do what you got to do. But I had so many experiences along the way, both good and bad. And I wouldn't be able to be who I am and teach what I am and share the wisdom I have if I didn't have those experiences. Each experience makes us. And I always, you got to take risks. And if you don't take risks, and if you don't risk that you might fail, you're never going to learn and grow. I moved back into my hometown, and I love my old townies, but they didn't take risks. They stayed close to home. They went from being with mom and dad to being with husband, and and that's fine. That's a great life. But when you take that fearful step, when you jump off that ledge, and you might fall, and you know what, you better fall. You've got to learn from mistakes and pick yourself back up. And each time, you're going to learn, you're going to improve. And it not only helps you here in this life, but it helps as someone who does past lives, it helps your soul's path and your soul's journey. And I know I signed up, my contract was like, give me all the lessons I could get this life so I don't have to come back too many more times. So in some ways I'm like, okay, I'm getting through my lessons, I'm learning them, and hopefully they'll all sink in soon. So.
In terms of, you're bringing up the life experience and moving along in your soul's journey, would you touch a little bit on your experience, that really pushed you forward with your husband's sexual betrayal, and how that kind of shaped you in this last kind of iteration of your soul's journey, how that kind of fed into your work, both, you said good and bad from all of this, like the learning experience. So what would you like to relay to our viewers about your experience with that sexual betrayal and how that kind of shaped you?
Yeah, the first, so I had after our first year of marriage, I knew something wasn't right. So now I know he's a covert narcissist. So there's your overt, which is obvious, but he was a covert. So, and he also was OCD. So when he got into something, he got into it full force. So he saw me, and he was this like classic geek. I as a model, I dated the players, and I'm like, so I'm like, I found a geek. I'm like, he's never going to cheat on me because all the players did. And my father was this really handsome player as well. So I made sure I found the complete opposite. But, he was so excited that this type of woman was interested in him. So he went all in, and he did everything right. My girlfriends were like, oh my God, this guy adores you. He loves you, blah, blah, blah. But my guy friends felt something was off, but they couldn't put their finger on it. And I didn't listen to them. I listened to my girlfriends. But then what happened was, and I looked back through my journals on our honeymoon, I noticed something shifted. Now, I wasn't into the energy healing then, so I didn't quite understand it, but I just wrote, something's different. I don't know what it is, because he got me. So in a narcissist, once they get you, okay, there's no effort behind it anymore. They got the prize. And then whatever he got into, whether it was cars or the video games or blah, 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 he'd go in full force, drain our finances for it, then get bored with it and move on to something else. Right. So that's obviously what happened with me. And then he found some younger married woman with 3 children, which really shocked me. But he was in these back kind of porn rooms. Like he's an internet kid, and he started playing these games, and that's how he met people on the internet. But what was at that point, I was just coming into my spiritual intuitive abilities, and things were starting to happen. And I kept asking him, are you having an affair? And he looked me right in the eye and said, no. And I assumed if you look someone in the eye, you're not lying. Now, a few years later, I took a class from a CIA agent, and then I learned, oh, no, that's not necessarily the case. And I learned how to spot liars. But I would take my pendulum out, I'm like, and it said, no, he's not, no, he's not. But that's because we really control our pendulum with our nervous system and our finger. And that's because I didn't want to believe it. Because my dad died, now my mom died. I really had no family left. He was it. So I didn't want to believe that, I was wrong about him, and that he could actually do this. I'm like, he's not the type of guy, right? And so when it came out, I was just so devastated. I remember I got so sick. It was just so, and then, he begged and pleaded, and, we worked through therapy, and we got it back together. But after that, I got smarter. I did take the class on liars. So when it started again, I knew right away. And he'd still lie to my face. And now intuitively I knew, when I'm like, well, he doesn't believe in that because he'd gaslight me forever. So so I knew he was playing this. We had an agreement when we got back together. He couldn't play this particular video game where he met this woman, but he was. And I knew he was. And this went on for and finally I'm like, well, he'd sit in the bathroom. He created, we had a bathroom in the basement, and finished just a little ranch we're in, but he soundproofed it. And but there was a window. So, and I knew what he was doing in there. So one day every time I'd said, you're playing the game, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So I actually looked in the window. My dog was outside. I'm like, oh, there he is playing the game. I'm watching it. It's not intuitive. I'm watching it. I come in. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I was watching you through the window, and he'd still lie. And I was just like, oh my God, you know, so it's just, it made me doubt myself. There are times that, yes, I'm angry at him, but there are times I'm probably more than often than not, I'm more angry at myself for not seeing it and being more proactive and not allowing him to bully me or try to tell me what I was thinking when I knew the truth. So I think it was, there was the one incident. And then when I caught him, of course, I mean, spirit help me. Um, it was late at night. I took a shower. We had just had sex actually, and I took a shower because I had to get up in the morning to go see. This is kind of a strange story for another time, but I was going to see my great grandson from my past life in New York, and it was cold like it is now. It was January then, and I had chickens, and I wanted to make sure the weather was okay for them. But I had showered afterwards, and I shut my phone off. And the voice in my head, my spirit guides who were really connected to me at that point, they were still coming to me visually, said, pick up his phone. I'm like, I never pick up his phone. I don't do that. Pick up his phone. Pick up. I picked it up to look at weather and I saw something odd and I let it go. And they're like, go back. And there I found everything. I found the emails, the texts, the da 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 da. So I find it. He's trying to get his phone back. And I turn to him and I say, so you are having an affair? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm like, Vlad, it's on your phone. And then I found he was talking about me to these other people, and he got off on the idea of having sex with someone one night and sex with me the next, unprotected, mind you. So it was just, I just never thought that would happen to me. And here I was reliving my mother's life. I really was. And love my father and mother, not, going back to that. But um, I think for me, I almost was betraying myself. And because I was getting, getting too steeped in some of that spirituality, I'm like, that spirituality is not enough. We live in a 3D world and we're having a human experience. So we need to find that healthy balance. Now, my spirit guides smacked me in the head that night and said, pick up his phone. So they are there. So, but, sometimes we don't hear the messages and it's hearing the messages. And then, the second time when he, this, you can't give someone a second chance. You give them a second chance, and if they blow that, it's that shame me once, fool on you, shame me twice, So the second time around, I'm like, no, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm done. And it's very scary to be at my age going through a divorce, and especially in the crazy times going on in this world. But that's where you have trust and faith that the universe is just pushing things out of your way for something much, much better to line up. And I just had to go with that, and but still deal with the human consequences of the situation. So, and that's where somatic healing comes in. I think that's where I started getting back more into yoga and breath work, and for myself, because I always have a student around to work on me, and that's why I think it's good for us to learn different things. I'm working with an amazing therapist who does EMDR, and EMDR is a really good thing to kind of disengage some of those thoughts and what it does to your nervous system. So, we're fortunate. There are a lot of good things coming out. You just have to make sure you find what's right for you and what's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, after, all of that, right? That horrific experience, and what did you find? You're talking about kind of merging the spiritual and the physical, adding some new modalities. How did that push you kind of personally and professionally in your work?
Yeah, I'm changing up my work. I do have some students who now are able to teach, and I really enjoyed writing my book. And I'm going into more writing and not necessarily in the spiritual path, or it's more helping other people who've gone through this find their way through it. So I'm not a senior yet, but I am getting close to that age, and I have a senior community that right up the street from me. So I talk to everybody there, and a lot of single women, they were either divorced or widowed and never remarried. So I'm going to be writing books that gear a little more towards um, health for people in their 50s and 60s, and finding that, the trauma of the boyfriend girlfriend thing doesn't end in our 20s. It can resurface again in midlife. That's why they call it a midlife crisis. And there are a lot of these people of my age who are going through these things, but they don't have a resource, because when they go online, they see some young, pretty influencer, and that's not who they're going to resonate with. So, and it's also about talking about health. What we put in our body is so important, and that's why even choosing your partner, what you put in your body, right? It's your temple. And our food system's so polluted, and that's why, like, I don't succumb to any of the beauty things out there, because it's you're putting chemicals and toxins in your body, and they not only, science is now, medical science is now proving that doesn't only mess with your physical body, but does mess with your mind. So you're putting neurotoxins in your body if you're doing Botox. So I'm trying to help people live healthy naturally, and let them know it's okay to age gracefully, and then introduce them as well to the spiritual concepts and to the other work I do, because sadly, like, people of your age are far more open to this. But when you get into, like, my friends here I grew up with just think I'm some kook sometimes, they don't understand it. It scares them, right? Because I went to Catholic school, we were raised a certain way, and it literally scares them. So I'm trying to be that bridge between the spiritual world and our physical world, because we live in both, and to help both younger and older understand that. But I'm also going to continue to write books on the spiritual path as well. And I've learned a lot about narcissism. So when I get through this situation, I just want to help people. And I think books are the best way for me to help people, because they're cheap. They could get out to more and more people. So that's really where I'm looking to go in this new golden stage of my life I'm entering.
Amazing. I love how you bring up, like, kind of this purpose, maybe not new, but expanding, shifting, taking on kind of a different form. Kind of the silver lining after, going through something so difficult. And
Mhm.
I know Stephen really wants to know, and we had talked very briefly last time we spoke about what, you'd mentioned you gave him 10 years. And what was he not doing in that time? Because you were doing your stuff, and what was coming up for him in that time that he wasn't working on?
Well, he went to therapy, and he was working, and he was kind of even helping me in my business. So he was doing okay. He really was doing okay for a number of years. He knew he blew it, and he didn't want to lose me, and he was doing great. And his family, his parents loved me, so he didn't want to disappoint them as an only child. And he grew up in a Jewish household, so you definitely don't want to disappoint your parents. He has his own childhood trauma as well. So he was really good for a number of years, but then when his father died, he probably didn't deal with the trauma of that for him, but he just went down the road of, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to inherit all this money they have. This is great. And then he just went from doing really well to wham, right back. I mean, I watched the phase. It only took a few months. It just only took a few months before he shifted. So that was it. And I'm like, there's no coming back. And it almost brought me back. So then he started playing. I mean, now he's, we're in the divorce, but in the state I live in, we still have to live together, which is incredibly toxic. It's a Commonwealth state, old laws on the books written by old white men in the 1700s for old white men today. And like, unless he punches me, I can't get him out. They don't recognize emotional or mental abuse, and he won't stay because he doesn't want to have to pay me support. It's just a mess, and I have to live with this. So that's really hard for me. But now I'm at a point I had to disassociate myself, that I don't care what he does. So now he's full on gaming again. He will, when he's not working, he will wake up in the morning, he will get coffee and start gaming. He won't even get up to eat, and he will game till he goes to bed at night. And we know, right, if you've read the reports of what that does to your prefrontal cortex, he has no empathy, no compassion, no energy to do anything else. And, in the past, when he did that, I was trying to help him. Now I don't care. Now I'm like, fry your brain. You are somebody else's problem. I just want to just get through the divorce, and following the laws of my messed up state, and it's stupid, long, and expensive, but it's brought me to a new passion, really, is to write these books. And in the meantime, the retirement community came in, so they're like, I interview all these people, and so it's the universe. Just I've always been one of those people that I master something and I hit master skills, right? And now I want to do more, so I'll still do that. I'll still do that. I'm not going to leave that, but I want to do even more. And so yeah, so that's really what it was. He was doing really okay for a while. But then, when I saw it happen again, I'm like, no, I finally, what it was, Stephen Lee, I finally learned my worth. I grew up in a time and place, right? So I grew up in the 60s and 70s, in little rural community. It was very Christian based. And I grew up with fathers who just thought women were good for two things, sex and cooking. And that was it. And I was treated that way, and my mother was treated that way. And we were just taught we aren't worthy. We're just not worthy. And it took me almost 60 years to realize, no, I am worthy. And that's really what it came down for me. I put up with, it wasn't just him. I was married right out of college too, to an overt narcissist. It was obvious. And it was just, I took it, and he was physically abusive, which is how he ended up getting out of my house. The police took him out, and still have a restraining order to this day. It was a different state though. It was New Jersey. It was better. Um, and I was the money earner because I was the model, but I didn't feel worthy, and being in modeling in the time I was in it, in the 80s and the 90s, the whole Me Too movement, I can tell you all of that is true. That's why when it came time to leaving it, it wasn't such a difficult decision, because I had at that point gotten to the point that I was, working with the supermodels on the runways in Paris and Milan, and going to the yacht parties in Monaco, hopping yacht to yacht to yacht and doing all that. And I just saw a lot of stuff, and a lot of that was coming back at me as well. And I had to make choices, and I didn't like being put in that position. And so it wasn't such a difficult decision, because it's just not a road I wanted to take. But it made me realize that I and women of that era, we just didn't feel worthy. Now my friend, I didn't have kids. I had two miscarriages, but I didn't have kids. But I see with my friends who had kids, they brought their daughters up differently, and their sons. So they taught them they were worthy, and they taught their sons to respect women, and to, gee, maybe do some dishes or do your own laundry, or your generation was brought up better because of us. Each generation does better, and is
Right.
really what it comes down to. And honestly, that was probably my biggest lesson. My biggest aha moment was, oh, I'm worthy. I'm better than this. I don't need to take this anymore. Yes, it's scary, very scary financially, but I'm just like, I just gotta, have that trust and faith, not only in the universe, I have to have that trust and faith in me, that I can move on and reinvent myself and do fine. And I have a really great therapist who we do more than EMDR, and she specializes in narcissistic abuse. So I didn't even know what gaslighting was until I went through this. I'm like, oh, I've been gaslit for 22 years. And gaslighting really strips you down of even though I was this thing to speaking and doing this and creating this, at home I was someone different. So I think that's really what it was. I learned my worth. And that's what I'm hoping. I see a lot of other women my age who still haven't learned their worth. And I want to help them learn their worth.
That's wonderful. And, thank you so much for sharing your, such, vulnerable information about your own experience, and I think that, your experience will help a lot of people. And, before we wrap up here, is there anything else that's on your heart that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
The other thing I had to learn besides worth is self-love. Is we need to learn how to love ourselves, because I beat myself up like it was my fault. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I see this? I just beat myself up. It's when it came to learning forgiveness, I finally realized that the real person I need to forgive is myself, and I wasn't doing that. So it's self-worth, and it's learning, it's my doggy here, and it's learning forgiveness. And it's a lot to learn sometimes, and to accept it. And that's what it is. So I'm glad you guys gave me this. Come here, Chester. You're not gonna. Dogs will teach you true unconditional love.
Yeah.
So, and that's something else, in longevity. So a lot of the work I'm getting into is longevity work. And in longevity work, we need to have self-love, and we need to be able to forgive ourselves and others, right? Because, the Buddha said, anger is the poison you feed yourself. Right. So we have to get through the anger. You have to work through it though. You can't just say, oh, just think positive. That doesn't work. That anger is in your nervous system. It's in your tissues. It's in your brain, body, and you in your heart. You've got to work that out. And then you can move through it and forgive it. It's kind of like you can take a bunch of ingredients, but until you put them through the food processor or the blender, they're not necessarily something you're going to eat, right? So you've got to process them. And they also found that volunteering helps us live longer, helps us learn how to forgive. So I got back to before COVID, I was volunteering at the dog shelters. So I'm going back to volunteering at the dog shelters because that brings me joy. And that's something else people need to learn is, is to give of yourself still freely. And that's hard sometimes. I know some people that have been through some things and they're so jaded. And, we talk about putting up boundaries. And yes, you need to put up some boundaries, but sometimes some people put up such boundaries that they put themselves in a concrete block and they're not open enough for people to come to them. And people feel they can feel those boundaries and then they're put off. So it's finding that balance and learning, in order to receive, you've got to give freely of your heart. Just make sure that it's healed and it's ready to forgive and move on. And if you find someone that's just not aligned with you, it's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away. Bless them with peace. And you do your best to get through Earth School 101, and hopefully you've gotten through it. When you go through your life review, you can move on to something else. So. And also keep an eye. I didn't talk a lot about that. I didn't. It's interesting because I get called to do a lot of these, and I, certainly people get on these to promote their work, and I'm glad you gave me that space. I love my work, and if you read my book, it's called Get Forked, or you go to my website, you can learn so much there. When we had our first conversation, I'm in this vulnerable place, but I'm using it to help people, and I'm glad we got to really talk about that. And then for all of you out there, just keep an eye out on me. I'm working on these other books and other programs to really expand and help us in a lot of different ways. So stay tuned, as we say in the tuning fork. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the gift that you're offering to allow people to really dive in deeper to some of the things that we touched on. And I know Stephen wants to let people know where they can find that, but I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Lisa. And I want to thank our audience as well for tuning in. And Lisa is also offering a free gift to the audience, her ebook, How to Get Started Using Tuning Forks. All the information on Lisa Alexander is provided in the links below, along with how you can get in touch with her and find out more about the work that she is doing. And Lisa, I just want to say one last time, thank you so much again for being with us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. You two are just a joy and a gem, and I love the work you're doing. And thank you.
Glad Chester could join us too.